Hey y'all, it's the Kings. Today on the podcast, we have with us Danny Mason from Noble Acres, and we have a bunch of questions about gardening and growing food and how she's successful and her plant sales and everything like that. Little intro into why I have on lipstick in my she shed with a hat is because a goose just hit me in the face and I was bleeding.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding?
No.
I can't even tell.
Welcome to my life. So
that is so crazy.
They've literally been killing our chickens, literally breaking their necks. Like, I got them to be protectors of chickens, raised them with chickens, and yet they're still killing the chickens. So now every night we have to put them separately, but that entails us catching them, and they're no joke. So
oh my goodness. Anyway. And I guess you can't just leave them in.
No, they killed our favorite chicken 2 days ago. Arthur was so upset.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay. She was 8. So if they're gonna kill one, at least kill like an old one. But it was an attachment chicken. You know, we have ones that don't have names, and Ethel had a name. But
oh, I'm so sorry.
Anyway, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
Check out my notes to see where we are on questions. But first question is, how did you get into gardening?
So I have been gardening for a long time. I got into it as an adult when I was, we just had an apartment and I went to a farmer's market. I hope you can't hear the screaming children in the background. I went to a farmer's market and there was a guy selling heirloom tomato plants there. And this was probably like, it must have been like, it was probably like 8 years ago now. And he had some little sun golds, which I know very well now, of course. But I got one of those and I grew it on my patio, and it did so well. And it grew so tall. I had no idea because it was indeterminate. And I started that way. And then we got our house about 4 years ago, and I started with a couple raised beds. And then every year it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Bigger and bigger. Yes, for sure.
It just keeps expanding. I always think I'm done and then it gets bigger. But growing up, I lived on like a homestead, kind of like what you guys have.
Mm-hmm. In Ohio, right?
In Ohio. And so that like has always kind of been something that I've had a little bit of interest or knowledge about. And I loved being able to just go out and pick, like you can just pick dinner easily. And so when we got our own house, I was like, I want to be able to have a little garden. And then, like I said, it just keeps growing. So
right. So in Ohio, obviously there were challenges. Now you're near Atlanta, right? Yes, so growing season's a little bit different.
Yeah, I know. I think now, so when I was in Ohio, I was a child, so I had no idea what kind of, zones or anything like that we were in. But now that I'm growing in zone 7B, I can't imagine like the challenges, because our growing season's 199 days. So we get so much time. I can mess everything up and start again in May. If you're in Ohio, it's a little bit different. So it's been interesting because my grandmother just moved down here and she's, seeing gardening through the southern eyes now. And she's like, oh, you can't start that till May. And I'm like, no, we can start this, beginning of April. So
that's crazy.
It's fun.
Yeah. So
what zone are you guys in?
I think we're in 8B. Y'all just got snow, didn't you?
We did. Yeah, we just got snow.
No
snow.
No, thank you. I'm good.
We get like 1 day of snow every year, and that's it. And I'll take it. It's fun.
Every year?
Every year we get like 1 day. Yeah.
No. We got snow the year I was born and the year I was 30. So 30 years apart. That was the only snow that stuck to the ground. Yes. Like today, or is it this weekend, we're getting another winter storm, and one of the lows is like 29, and I was complaining because what is that? And Arthur goes, yep, we got to go south. We got to more south.
I'm with him. I would love to be in like a zone 9. Like if I could be in a zone 9, I could grow everything. I would miss the snow a little bit, but
yeah, I know. Like we had bananas still on the tree this week. They were like a huge bushel of bananas. So cool. Yeah, no, they're frozen now. Amazing. They're ruined. So they'll never get to where just where I need them. But anyway,
you guys are just on the verge of not being able to grow that.
I know. So, and we're like not even half a mile from the water. So like the water, the coastal air helps us kind of be in
Yeah.
a little different, a warmer climate. It helps us.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Yeah.
we get hurricanes, so pick your poison.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I remember
all
that.
right. So edibles, you kind of already touched on it, but why have you focused? Do you only focus on edibles, or do you focus on everything? Obviously, you have house plants galore.
Yes, I started actually with, well, I've always dabbled in edibles. And when my daughter was young, I really got into houseplants because I was kind of, in here, like I wasn't able to just go outside for 3 hours. And this was kind of before the garden got big, and really more when we were in an apartment too. And so I got really into houseplants, and then I don't know, I just go through seasons. Like right now I'm really into houseplants again because it's the middle of winter and I just want to be growing things. Like I got a lime tree. It's in my house. It's like, that's a houseplant here. You can't grow limes. But so, that's what I focus on in the winter, but it's kind of more of like I dabble. With the edibles, the reason I focus so much on those in my main garden is just because like being able to produce something that feeds the family or is productive in any way. Like I'm the same way about like there's my sewing machine. Like I love being able to make something out of seemingly nothing. And so being able to make food is just a fascinating adventure. Like I just love being able to come in with a basket full of produce. I am getting more into florals and stuff this year. This is like the first year, because before I was like, why are all these sweet old biddies obsessed with flowers? Like vegetables are where it's at. Like they're so much fun. They get big so fast, But now this year, I think I'm finally like, I bought so many flower seeds. And so I'm planning to put those everywhere. And my goal is to have, well, I got a little ahead of myself, but I really want to try to have a bouquet every week, because I feel like, if I plan it out, I should be able to do that. And then it's something productive I can bring in and use. So
and make things beautiful.
That's why I like edibles. Yeah, and make it beautiful, because I do love that too. And I've been really in a season. I was listening to you guys talk about your goals for the new year. I was listening to that podcast earlier today, and you guys were talking about how you keep changing your house and beautifying it in new ways, like with new styles. And we've been doing that too. Like we change our house constantly. Like we cannot leave it alone.
It's like a canvas that it's never done. Like you can just, last night we were rearranging, I hung a chandelier that we don't have a light fixture in the foyer, so it's a plug-in chandelier. But we were rearranging lights till about 9, and Arthur was like, okay, like we're done now.
Yes.
No, there's always more. Yeah, exactly.
I know. I'm that same way. I love to redo it. And so that's kind of what I do inside. I do it outside. But this year I want to focus more on flowers and stuff, just because I feel like I've got the vegetables I really like to grow. I feel like I've got them down to where they're not a challenge, but flowers, not like they're not a challenge. I will still face pest pressure, and I'll forget to water stuff. My irrigation will go wonky. But the flowers is like, I'm so blown away by how much detail there is. Like I'm going through the packets and like these you start 2 weeks before. You know what I mean? Do you do a lot of flowers?
So I started with flowers, but I have like staples. So I never really got into, I'm gonna grow this particular seed packet and it's gonna, like how you're planning. I plan, but like knowing your growing season to the day, kudos to you, because I have no idea. I just guess, and if it gets warm out, I'm like, I'll just start this. Out there. And then the greenhouse now, I know you have a greenhouse too. You can just kind of go.
You can just
so I have a lot to learn from you in a lot of ways.
I probably have a lot to learn from you too. The reason I know the dates now, whereas I wasn't as focused on the dates previously, but now that I'm selling plants for other people, like when I was growing my own tomatoes, like I feel like starting them. I can start them now. They get insanely leggy. There's 20 of them. I repot them into bigger pots, what have you. Well, if I have 100, I'm in trouble if I start too early, and I'm in trouble if I start too late. So I've got it down to the date.
That makes sense. Like that makes sense. Yeah. So even like I went to a friend's house today and all her plants were covered, and she was like, "Did you cover your plants?" I said, "No, it's survival of the fittest. Every staple flower I have, if it dies, it dies, and Godspeed. For the most part, the jungle that we have created, because we have 27 neighbors, so slowly
Yeah.
working down the border to literally create like a jungle
That's
as
awesome.
privacy, and
Yeah,
it does fine. So
it does. Most things do. What are your staple flowers though?
well, so we were so lucky when we moved here. The family before us had already put in like over 20 camellias, which are beautiful, evergreens, and then they
Oh,
bloom
yeah.
now. They're actually
Mhm. They're
in stock,
gorgeous.
done blooming. Yeah, and they have so many different
Yeah,
variations, and some are graft, so
I've
half's pink
seen.
and half's red and white, and they're amazing. Um,
That's cool.
so that's really nice to have like that infrastructure here already.
Yeah.
And then I just hydrangeas and knockout roses, like you can never, ever, ever go wrong with them. I've put them in
Yeah, I
shade. I've
totally
put them
agree.
in, I have one right next to the duck water. It's constantly wet. It's in full bloom every year.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't
Really?
like that much water, and it's fine. No big
Yeah,
deal. So
that's amazing.
that's my second like staple that I
Mhm.
throw in pretty much everywhere except for where we're having like we started the food forest up front.
Yeah.
I'm in my she shed, so I'm like, here's the backyard, here's the front yard. But
Over here, over there.
yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
did that
In
too.
this way.
Greenhouse that way.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Um, so in the food forest, I took away like shrubs like that and moved them
Yeah.
into my ornamental beds. So it's kind of like how I've done with the food forest. You think of like your trees and then your shrubs and then
Mhm.
your like in terms of flowers, your well and food, your perennials and your lower level and then your
Mhm.
ground covers. So like for lower level flowers, I've got the walking irises and
Those are beautiful.
they're so pretty and the Mexican petunias and they're easy. They just go. Like
Yeah.
they
They
just
just go and they spread. I bet they spread like crazy where you guys are at.
they do and we have pink and purple. So they're
Oh,
beautiful, and
nice.
I never mind if something spreads. I feel like it's a free flower. Some people get
I
upset
know, me
about that.
too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like bonus. Like, you
Yes,
didn't
I
have to pay
know.
for
I
that
love it.
one.
We have irises too, and the same. It's like every time I plant new bulbs, I'm like, oh my gosh, I forget how expensive it is to buy bulbs.
I know.
Like, you can spend $15 and you have a plot this big, but where's my iris bed? It grows out by that
Right. And then
much
you can
like
split it and
every
share,
year.
and I know.
Hmm.
So it's great. There's
It's fun.
do you ever go to plant swaps for stuff like that?
I'm trying to think if I don't think I've been to a plant swap yet. I heard
Okay.
about a bunch of
You'll
them
have
for
to.
house plants. But and then there's a big one in Tennessee that I accidentally am in their Facebook group. I just am like, there's 50 people in there and I'm just in there with them talking about what they're swapping. But I haven't been to one around here, but I need to. I should start one probably
Yeah,
because I've
you
not heard of
should.
one. And I
Well,
would
that's
have
like
by
where you
now.
get the random things that aren't,
Yes.
Mexican petunias and ferns, those are pretty normal things, but like you can find very specific perennial flowers that
Hmm.
other people have too many of. And then you're like, well, I have too many of these. Perfect. So
Yeah.
it all works
I
out. But
have
so that's how I approach flowers.
Yeah, I love that. I love bulbs and I love things that spread. And we do have some of that here. I really want to get more hydrangeas, like the big, beautiful white plumes. I'm really like obsessed with
Oh,
the way
yeah.
that looks.
We don't have any of
But
those. But
I
it's
just,
the
that's
soil
what I
pH.
heard.
So I don't
Yeah.
know of those white ones because I don't have any white ones. Um, but the
What color
soil
are
pH
yours?
affects it. Oh, it's so cool. So when we moved at the old house, they were all blue. And I was so
Yeah.
fortunate because we know a local nursery and they just had this huge winter's crop that they couldn't sell. They had past bloom and people don't buy things that aren't in bloom.
Yeah.
So he literally called my mom and was like, come pick these up. I think I picked up 200 I fit in my Honda Accord at the time.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that's
this was
crazy.
years ago.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like a bunch of
Mhm.
hydrangeas. One thing is it'd be expensive to rack up on those, but
Yes, but
if you
they're
get them for
so easy
free,
to root, and you could root like buy like
you
two,
do
and you can root.
cuttings.
Hmm. Yep. So
Oh,
we'll do
awesome.
cuttings, but the easiest way to do it is you literally lay down a branch, a stem, or a branch, I guess.
Yeah, like
Um,
pull it over while it's still
yep.
attached.
Put like a
Yeah.
brick on it, like open up the
Mhm.
earth a little bit, put a brick on it, and it'll root itself, and then you trim it off, and you got a new plant.
That's awesome. I wanna
Yeah.
try that with elderberry this year
Yes, me
because I heard it's
too.
the same type thing. Do you guys have elderberry in your food forest?
We do. We just got it last year though, so it's still in its infancy, but I'm really excited because we even had berries last year, but they were, they were first year berries and I didn't pick them. There was like
Yeah.
5. But I'm
Yeah.
excited because they grow big and then you can make an
Yeah.
elderberry syrup and all sorts of
Yes.
things out of it. So where are you
Yeah,
going to put yours?
definitely. So ours are just like we've got this back porch here that, I mean, if you've ever seen any of my videos, you've seen it. It is an eyesore underneath of it because it's just like mud and it's just gross. So I'm trying to build a garden kind of up around it
Oh,
to
cool.
like mask it a little bit.
Right?
And so I've got the elderberries there. Now those are not evergreen, so like right now it looks
No, I
sad
know.
again. But
Right.
I've got elderberry and then I got a ton of Joy Pop Passionflower. Have you heard of this?
I
It's like a
have.
purple, looks like an alien, and it's native here. And
Yes.
so is elderberry.
Yes.
Um,
It's actually very difficult to get rid of, so make sure you like it.
yes, I
As it
know.
will
Do you guys
seed
have it there?
everywhere. No,
Yeah.
because much like mint that took me 15 years, not really, exaggeration. It took me quite a long time
Yeah.
to get mint to thrive.
Mhm.
Something that should do very, very well here, and for me, I have put so many. There's literally wild passion flower on our walk, and I will pull
Really?
out of the ground these beautiful roots, and I'll get them here, and I'll put them in a pot, and I'll put them in wherever I want them, and they never take.
Mhm.
They never ever take.
Really?
So one
That's so
day,
weird. So I transplanted some and am shocked they survived. I didn't put them in a pot. I had them in the front yard and they were like in the middle of the lawn. Like it was just Williams like not getting to the lawn fast enough that spring
Mhm.
that I noticed them at all. Because if not, they would have been mowed down and gone. So I pulled them out and there was like one tap root. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, well, I'm screwed. Like I have there's nothing there. But I put it back into the clay and then it looked really sad forever and then it did actually take up, and now in my raised beds I was going to kind of put it around the raised bed so it could kind of grow up the trellis and attract in pollinators. I've got some coming up in the middle of the raised bed, so I don't know what that
Yes.
is, but I transplanted some of it here. But same with you, sometimes it just like totally dies, and I think it's because there's
Mhm.
not a big, I think the root fibers are really small, and so they're not
Right.
like, there's not a lot to keep it going until it establishes.
Right.
But
I think it would be so beautiful on like the front of our chicken coop and with those beautiful, I've never
oh
eaten it.
yeah,
I know you can eat
I
like
haven't
the little
either,
fruit,
no.
but the flower is just amazing. It
They're
does look
so
like an
pretty.
alien. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and you can harvest them for I have a friend who's an herbalist, like she's a doula herbalist. She's super crunchy up
mhm.
in Asheville, and she harvests baskets of these flowers, probably same thing, it's like native somewhere. And
Mhm.
she I forget, she makes tinctures out of them
Oh, cool. For
because they're
what does
supposed
it
to have
help?
medicinal qualities.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Yeah,
But something. And she has these big, beautiful baskets. And I'm like, oh, that's so pretty.
that is
But we're far away from that. So that's my elderberry and my passion flower over there. And I'm trying to make that like a natives space.
yeah, that's a great idea because elderberry is native everywhere pretty
Yeah,
much. I mean, it
I
grows
know.
all over the place. Yeah.
And I tried to root it and it's supposedly really easy. I picked some off the
Mhm.
side of the road, like you do. And it just died every
I
time.
know. My
William would be
daughter
like, can
thinks
I throw this away?
Yeah. My daughter thinks like it's normal to pull plants out of the ground on the side of the road. I'm like, that one's not,
Not, the-
that one's a
not while the
weed.
police man's here. Yeah.
Don't
Oh, that
grab
one's a
that
weed.
one.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um,
So
okay,
funny.
so you and I could talk forever, but
We're gonna be in trouble.
I'll stick to our questions for a minute. So what is your
Mhm.
gardening approach? Like I know you mentioned heirlooms and like do you obviously you've mentioned the side of parts of your business. So which part is
Mhm.
like grow as much as possible for fun, for your business? Like what are your kind of goals in gardening?
So basically, every year I my goals are, that was one of the things when um I saw this coming up, I was like, I can't think of it. As far as the business goes, I've got that kind of, like I've got plans for that this year. Um, First year I just had extra stuff and I sold it on Facebook. I started way too much because I had no idea. I was working with Baker Creek for the first time, their seeds, and they germinate at such a high rate. And I just don't have the heart to cull all those plants. And so I had a ton of
I know.
extras, and that's kind of how it started. Last year I went buck wild. I started like 20 varieties of tomatoes and tried to sell all of them. And so that was just too much. It was way too much for me. And it was a lot for the greenhouse. And I work full time, and that was crazy. So this year I'm being super goal oriented and focused. And I've got like 8 varieties of tomatoes I'm going to sell, and just like a couple other stuff here and there. And I'm going to be really intentional about that. As far as my garden though, I get a ton of motivation this right now and all through the spring. And then when the harvests start coming and the pests start coming, I tend to get overwhelmed. So one goal that I have this year is I'm not slowing down. Like, I've put more garden space in. That's not happening. But I really am going to try to really intentionally walk through the whole season, because I just tend to go fast and burn out. So I'm going to plant stuff slowly. I'm going to wait until May to plant my peppers, so I'm not worried about them for 2 weeks because they were too cold. I'm going to succession sow my cucumbers in small batches so that I don't have like 200 cucumbers and then none for the rest of the season. So my goal this year isn't really like produce based or anything like that. Like, I'd love to be able to not buy anything in the store that we are growing, cucumbers, stuff like that, tomatoes, peppers. But really, I want to try to just make sure that I structure this next season so that I can enjoy it more. And it'd be less of a chore.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's like across the board, everyone's goal. Because at some point you're in the middle of it, the thick of it, and you're working. And like, I just saw on your Instagram, you got a big compost dump, right? So y'all have to wheelbarrow that to the back.
Oh yeah, we sure do.
So starting in January, you're wheelbarrowing soil and compost to the back. And then, I mean, we're in the South. We're still harvesting things in October. So it's a long season.
It is a long season. That's a good point too. Yeah.
I actually just watched a video. I have to send it to you if you didn't see it. Oh, you probably saw it. That Justin Rhodes guy posted it.
Oh, I have not been good about catching up.
Okay, well, he just posted it up. I think yesterday, the day before, and it had Joel Salatin in it. And it was like a talk around Joel Salatin, and it was all these younger YouTubers asking Joel Salatin questions.
Yes, I saw it, but I didn't watch it.
Okay, highly recommend it. But Joel Salatin was saying that that he's seen a big difference in his, 20 plus years of traveling and talking. He's seen a big difference in Northerners and Southerners. And because someone asked him about burnout, and he was like, I've never had burnout, but find a way to fill your cup, basically. But he's saying the Southerners, our seasons are so long. So like homesteaders who are trying to make a business out of it, that burnout can be very real to them because they never take a break. And it's never just, you never just sit down and just be like, okay. Whereas when it snows, and they're forced to take a break, and their animals are forced inside and not having to move and do all the things that, they get that winter's rest where you can kind of recuperate. So it's a blessing and a curse to have a long season.
It is. And see, I was saying earlier, I wanted a longer one. I don't know if I could handle it. But that's one of my things this year is I'm going to try to just walk through it all with enough patience that when the plants come up, I can process everything. Because I don't know if you've struggled with this, but I have planted in such a way that I've had too much stuff to process at once. And especially with working and stuff, I've got so many tomatoes. And so then it works out good because my coworkers, I just bring in baskets.
I'm sure
but I'd love to be able to preserve that. Oh, they do. Yeah. And they're so fun because it's stuff you don't see in the store. And people who don't garden are so in awe of it. They're like, oh my gosh, this is
like
crazy.
Magic. It is.
Yeah.
It's like magic.
Yeah. You grew this? But one thing I want to do is buying canned tomatoes as early as December. I should not be doing that. I have so many tomatoes.
I'm surprised you are. Yeah.
So I get so gung ho in the beginning that the all the stuff the results, you're reaping what you've sown, and that piece just comes over me like a wave. So this year we're not doing that. This year I'm going to have a plan. I'm going to be like, okay, my tomatoes are coming on. Do you can tomatoes?
So we
don't freeze them?
We haven't canned them.
I heard they're hard to can.
They take forever, and you can only fit like 5 in a
Yeah.
stock pot, and I don't have a canner, and even if I did, I think you can only fit like 7. So, and you
Yeah.
get, I mean, and it's
So
hot.
many.
It's so hot when
Yes, you
like
don't want a
it's like
pot this
100
big
degrees
boiling.
when right,
Yeah.
exactly. I don't want to be outside over a boiling pot, and I don't want to be inside. So this year, speaking of being over a boiling pot, I blanched them and took the skins off and froze them
Oh,
with
okay,
the
that's what I'm gonna do this year, I think.
well, it was with the intention to when it got colder, we would can them. They're still in the
Oh,
freezer,
yeah.
but I haven't touched
Yeah,
them.
just keep them frozen. That's fine.
But they're there, and there are tomatoes, so I feel good about that. But we get a local farm bag, so whenever I have like I grew tomatoes, but I didn't grow enough for us to have all year. They
Yeah.
had extra, like big things of Roma tomatoes just left over from a local farmer. So I was like, sign me up,
Mhm.
and they'll do that. We have done it with apples, um, a lot of strawberries. So I
Mhm.
guess it's for people like us who I'd like to have those strawberries all year. I opened up a can. I did canned strawberry jam last year, and I opened
That's
up a can 2
awesome.
days ago and like put it on a waffle with some whipped cream. Oh my gosh, it was good. It was like
It's
biting
amazing.
into a
It's
fresh
like
strawberry.
yes, it's like a delicacy. Like this time, like because you just take it so for granted in the middle of the summer.
I
You're just
know.
like, oh my gosh, fresh tomato. Like I love like tomatoes are like my jam. I love tomatoes with
Mhm.
salt. Like my son, he is
Yeah.
obsessed with tomatoes with salt. He doesn't say one without the other. So he loves fresh tomatoes. We love them. But like by the end of the summer, I'm like, I'm good on that. Like I've had a
I
lot
know.
of tomatoes. Like I'll have it in something now,
Well,
maybe.
so
But
the easier
that's
I
why I
think.
think preserving.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. We're a
No,
little
go
bit
ahead.
lag behind. The
Oh,
easiest
are we? I wondered if
way,
we were gonna hear it.
yeah, the easiest way that we have found so far to do our tomatoes when it's 100 degrees outside is we roast them real fast at like 400 degrees, with all the garlic and onions and whatever we want in there. And then we let them cool, put them in a can. I mean, I can't I say a can, it's a jar. It's like this big, and we have a few of them.
Mhm.
And then we stuff herbs and the tomatoes. So it's like you have like that much headroom. And then you just pour olive oil.
Mhm.
And they're in our fridge, so they're not shelf
Oh.
stable. But like we pull out 1 or 2 tomatoes for pizzas every week. If we need spaghetti
Mhm.
sauce, it's so easy. So
That's awesome. And
I
how
saw
long does
that
that
on
stay good
the
for?
Elliott Homestead. But she did it with cherry tomatoes. I did it with Roma, and it worked fine.
Yeah. Roma would be good because then you'd have the bigger
Mhm.
ones.
Yes, and
How long
it
does that
just
stay good for?
indefinitely. Every time we take some out, we just fill up with a little more olive oil because you don't ever want to expose
That's
them to
awesome.
air because they'll get moldy.
Yeah.
So as long as the oil's covering them,
Mhm.
and then sometimes when the jar's like even getting low, you're probably not supposed to, but I just PS if anybody gets ill for my advice, like yeah, it was your choice.
Disclaimer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I won't even wait till we get to the bottom of the jar. I'll roast more and add to the top.
Yeah.
So, like if
I
we get
love
some more
that.
in our farm bag, yeah.
That's
Um,
so cool. I'm trying
so
that next year because we do that with
definitely,
pickles and stuff.
do you?
Yeah. Well, like quick pickles, we'll keep them in the fridge and then we'll add
Yeah,
more cucumbers in. And again, I don't know how like food safety it is, but all
I've
that
I've
stuff's
done that
a
too.
lot.
We're fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so excited about fermenting, but then you like
Yes.
it makes me kind of nervous too because like I'm making a ginger bug right now.
Oh, I've not done that before. I've heard a
I
lot
Me
about it though.
neither. Me neither.
Yeah.
And I forgot to say it in my goals thing. Like this year I've got a milk kefir on the way, a water
Nice.
kefir, and now I'm doing this ginger bug because we're trying to cut
Cool.
out the grocery store basically. We're trying to cut out
Yeah.
anything, and he likes to buy drinks, like fizzy drinks. So
Mhm.
we already make kombucha, but you can only drink so much kombucha. And then
Yeah.
just odds and ends. Whatever we can grow or get from a local farmer is best. And then of course, have you heard of Azure Standard?
Mm-mm.
Okay, we're getting that too. It's
What
not
is it?
the food miles are
Is it
still
like a
bad.
fermented thing?
No, Azure Standard, it's basically wholesale bulk. So we you can get pretty much anything, but it's bulk everything. So we don't get our
Oh, that's
produce
cool.
or meat or anything like that, but I
Yeah.
cannot find that pasteurized milk anywhere here. And I found raw
Huh.
milk, but shipping it in from Pennsylvania was really expensive. So
I
I'm
bet
getting,
it was.
yeah, but it was amazing. It was so good.
Was it? Oh.
But the vat pasteurized Azure has it. So we get a big order from them once a month. We just started a few months ago, and it's an adjustment because you get everything at one time, and you have to have the
That's a lot.
foresight.
Is it
what?
Is it like flour and like, is it like, no, you get flour from that grain mill, but is it
I do.
like
But I get
pasta or
I
what
get
all
like,
do they do?
yes, it's all that stuff, and you can get like little bags, or you can get like bulk. Like we get our smoothie fruit from there now, and it's like
Nice.
30 to 40 pounds per thing. So
That's awesome.
yeah, but I do get the flour from Lindley Mills. I think it's in North Carolina, but like oat flour and maple sugar and little things like that they just have it all in one thing, and it does come from Oregon, so it's like not, the food miles aren't great, but
Yeah.
it's once a month, and we go pick it up. They have drop-offs, so we've liked it.
Oh,
really,
that's even better then. That's
yeah,
awesome.
we really like it. We'd love to find something like equivalent to that on the East Coast, but for now, it's great. I can highly recommend it.
It's so hard. It's hard to find stuff like that locally. Like when you recommend that flour mill to me, which I still haven't ordered from me yet, but I'm going to when I run out of King Arthur flour. But it's hard to find places like that around. Like you would just think that with this big uptick in locally sourced everything that there would be a lot of options, but it's hard to source that stuff.
It is. Well, because the maple sugar, not going to be sourced in Georgia.
True.
So that part. I think I would really like to try sorghum. Sorghum, am I saying that right? Have you ever tried it?
No, I have not tried it, but
That's
there is
local.
Yes, it is, because it's kind of like a barley type thing.
It's like a cane,
right?
I think.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right, because it's a sugar.
Yeah.
No, but there is a podcaster. She does some videos and stuff too, but her name is, it's Traditional Cooking School. Have you ever come across her stuff? Wardy. Her name's Wardy.
Okay.
She's got like this, like she's written books and everything, and she talks a ton about fermenting, and her stuff is very like palatable for families, because she basically just talks about how she does it for her family, so it's not like large scale or anything like that. But
fermenting has like that.
She has.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go.
Ferment. That's what I was saying about.
Done. Is there a lag?
There's a little bit of a lag, so I think you're done, and I still, but it's okay. Hopefully it doesn't transfer that badly.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But yeah, so with fermenting, I love it so much. It's so much fun, like making kimchi and all that. But there's that little piece of you that's like, this is sitting. I know, I understand it's complete like biological science going on in there, and the yeast and the bacteria and everything. So I get it, it's safe. But there's still that piece of you that's like, this is sitting dormant, like on my counter. It's gonna grow bad things. Yeah. And it's gonna make us all ill.
Yeah, it takes a little while to undo that, I don't know. I'm with you. Like we made kimchi, fermented kimchi. Like sauerkraut, I'm good with, because it's like 4 days on the counter and then it goes straight in the fridge. So like 4 days, I can hang for 4 days. The kimchi was like a long time, and it has fish sauce in it, and I was like, this is nasty. Like I can't do it. Like I'm just gonna buy kimchi. I couldn't.
We don't use the fish sauce. Then we don't put that in.
Yeah, I don't. I do use fish sauce and stuff, but
I don't put that in the kimchi.
Fermenting.
Yeah.
I
know it's in the recipe, but we don't.
I wouldn't. I could smell it. It was like up on my counter, and I was like, I can smell that from here. Yeah. It was so bad. But there is like, we went through I went on a big fermenting kick like a couple years ago, and I was going to try to ferment everything. I got Noma Guide to Fermentation. Have you seen that book? It's like orange and white. Okay. It's like, you would love it if you're really into it. It tells you how to ferment everything. I heard about it from Josh Weissman. He's a YouTube cook.
Yes, I like his channel. Yeah.
And so he was doing a lot of fermenting and stuff, but it's like a textbook on fermenting. It has recipes, of course, but
okay, I'll have to look into it for sure. All right, so let's
like berries.
Let me get back.
We've gone off again.
Yes,
yeah,
it's all related.
Sorry,
it's all related. How do you do your garden?
Well,
we're gonna figure out how to preserve it.
That's
how.
All of it.
All right. So what is your process? Because your seedlings that you are now selling at plant sales and such, right? Around Atlanta. Is that right?
Yeah.
They look amazing. Mine are always leggy and some don't make it. And if I start it in the greenhouse,
some of mine don't make it.
Okay. Those don't make it on Instagram, do they?
No, not as much. I mean, you'll see them in the background dead and wilted, but
yeah. So how do you know, like, what do you do to start your seedlings and make them succeed? And then like, everything has a different harvest, but how do you innately know that something's ready to harvest? Because I feel like that's the hardest part with some of the vegetables.
Yeah, it is difficult. Well, trial and error is a ton on the harvesting piece, but as far as the seedlings go, so the seedlings that I feel like I'm the most comfortable with are tomatoes, and they're so easy because what I do for them is I've tried it a couple different ways. I tried 2 seeds per cell. I've tried doing that. I ended up with like 4 plants in one. So now what I do is I get little 4x4 containers, and in the 10-20 you can fit, whatever the math works out to, so many of those, and they fit snug and perfect. And I keep them bottom watered after the seedlings are established, but I just sprinkle, usually I'll do so if I've got one of those little squares, I just do 9 spots. And then that's where I do my seeds. And I do 1 seed per hole because the seeds I buy just germinate at such a good rate that I don't want to be like this if I can help it. Right. So I'll sow them. And that's like if I have a rare seed, I'll do wider like that. But I'll even do double that. So I could do 20 plus in one little tray. And then I let them grow, to be about that big. It just depends. Might get leggy sometimes too. But tomatoes, when they get leggy, you can plant them down. So it's so nice. So it's really good if you're starting out, if anybody's starting out, to try with tomatoes. And so then I do several series of transplants. And I find that helps them not get waterlogged. And it helps me cull what needs to be culled. And it just makes it to where I end up with a prettier plant at the end. I did the same thing with peppers last year. Peppers were a little bit of a challenge. They're really finicky. They hate to have wet feet, but I do the same thing. I plant them probably 4 in the same size. So, they have a square inch of space. And then I would just transplant them into their own 4-inch pot whenever they got to be a little bit bigger.
Okay.
And
what
so that's
soil
my plan. Lots of transplants.
Do you use?
So for the soil, it has just depended, honestly. I've used a bunch of different stuff. What I'm kind of keep going back to is for seed starting, I do kind of I get a good high quality potting soil. If I can, I get Happy Frog. The only thing with Happy Frog is that it's not actually organic, and things grow beautifully in it, but it's not technically organic. And people ask, is this organic? Well, it's not technically organic. And then I have to have that weird conversation. So this year, I think I'm going to try, because organic is difficult, soil being organic is difficult to define.
Right.
So, but anyway, so this year I think I'm going to try Espoma Organics, because I've heard a lot of good things about them. And I do, when I first start out, honestly, it's a little bit hodgepodgey how I mix it, but if I were to have to write down a recipe, it's probably 50 to 75% of whatever potting soil I'm going to use. And then I mix in half and half of cocoa coir and perlite. So it's lofty.
Okay, so you're really going to have to text me this
later,
and I'll put it in the show notes. But I don't that's probably where I go wrong, because I just do potting soil.
It could be because the potting soil has fertilizers in it, and because it's so much broken down material, sometimes the seeds struggle to, and they'll it's hard. It's where they basically, it's they were growing and then they pinch off and just fall over.
Yes.
It's life so got zapped out of them. Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be from the over fertilizing, and sometimes it can be from just because that soil is made to break down and feed a plant. But the
Right.
perlite and the other organic material that doesn't break down as fast kind of helps with the seedlings. And then when I transplant them, usually the first transplant, I'm going straight into potting soil after that because they've got a little bit of a
Okay.
root base. They can handle it from there.
Okay. So
So,
how many times did you say you transplant before they go
I
outside?
let's see, last year tomatoes grow really fast, so that's going to be like nothing gets transplanted as much as tomatoes does. Like my peppers grow a lot slower, but they're the most, and they got transplanted 4 times.
Wow.
Once
You did
because
that
they plant
100
them.
for 100 tomatoes?
Yes, I told you I
No
got in
wonder
over my
you're
head last
tired.
year. Yeah, I was so tired. I was like transplanting stuff. Now I do really enjoy like the physical work. I don't know if it was 100. That was another thing last year. I did not keep count. This year I've got a spreadsheet. I'm so organized. Um, but but so because I planted them in the big cell thing, and then I transplanted them into smaller pots. No, just 3 times. I'm sorry. Yeah, just the 3 times. So, but
Very
then I
cool.
got them in like little 2-inch pots, and then I wouldn't have done it a whole third time, but I have to transplant them when I'm selling them into, you know, more disposable pots because I use like the Bootstrap Farmer pots, and I can't be letting those go all over the world. Plus, I like them to be a little bit bigger.
What? I've
So
never heard. You're telling me all these things I've never heard of. You're gonna have to text everything to me. What is a
I
bootstrap
will.
farmer pot? Is
So
that a
Bootstrap
brand?
Farmer, yes, it's a brand, and
Oh,
they sell them on Amazon too, but it's this super heavy duty, like greenhouse grade. Like on Amazon, the picture is like a 10-20 tray flipped upside down, and then there's like a 30-pound weight on it or something.
oh,
These pots are like indestructible. So like usually you get a nursery pot, and after 1 year, like it's
right.
crumbling,
Mm-hmm.
or broken or cracked. They don't crack, they last forever. So the stuff I have for my garden, I use the Bootstrap Farmer 1020s, and then I use the 2-inch pots as well. And those are all
Okay.
Bootstrap Farmer. And then the trays that I start my tomatoes in. Because like I can pick up a Bootstrap Farmer 1020 tray with one hand, and it can be full of soil and water. And it doesn't, usually if you pick up a 1020 tray, it'll just flop over
Right. Yeah.
under that weight. But they're super heavy
So
duty.
how do you like set them in a tray for the underwater or the under,
Yeah.
you know, the water underneath?
They've got they've got the 1020. I have my Bootstrap Farmer 1020 trays, and then just a bunch of just I get them from Greenhouse Works. It's like a bulk greenhouse supply place.
Mm-hmm.
Um but so I have those lining the greenhouse, the trays, and then I just put the tomato plants in whatever size they're in or whatever plant. I don't do this with peppers because peppers hate to have water, just be
Mm-hmm.
sitting in water.
Mm-hmm.
Tomatoes don't mind it. So I just, leave the bottom with a little bit of water in it, and then the tomatoes can take it up as they need it. Because in the greenhouse, it gets hot in there. You have a greenhouse
Right.
too, right?
Yes, but
It's
yours
hot.
is like handmade beautiful, and mine, not that mine isn't cute, but ours was just one of those like handy houses we picked up. So it has a fan, but you don't have a fan, right?
Yeah.
So do you just open
No, we don't have a
windows for a
fan.
wind blow?
Yeah, we've got a crosswind situation. It's actually
Okay.
technically like a cold frame because there's no heat and there's no fan. But so
Oh yeah, ours
it's like,
isn't heated either.
yeah, I like put a heater out there
I do too.
when I'm starting all my seeds because I can't.
Yeah.
This is the other room that I do them in. Like that's my potting bench, and I just can't fit too much
Right.
on that. So
Yeah, we've
so
been raising our birds in there this year. We obviously couldn't do it when it
really,
was really hot because I mean the thing, even with the fan on, it gets upwards of 100 degrees. But
yeah,
in the early spring, and we just got a November batch of birds, and you put a little heater
nice.
in there, and I've got injured birds right now because our puppy keeps attacking birds. So I've got 2 injured in there right now. So it's great. It's useful all over the board.
Yes, I love that. I'm gonna take that idea because we are gonna get birds soon. We're gonna get
Oh,
some
okay.
baby chicks,
Where are you
and
ordering
I
them
was like,
from?
well, I was gonna order them. I was all gung ho, and then I went online, and it's like you can't get a full cart anywhere. Where do you order yours from?
I think we just did My Pet Chicken. And for
Okay.
the first time ever, well, I had one batch of ducklings that all made it. plus the extra. Same thing happened this year, or because I don't know if it was November. It was the week of Thanksgiving, so I was panicked that
Yeah.
the mail was not going to show up on time, and then you have the holiday, and then I would never get my birds. But for the first time ever, they all got here. They all lived. They sent us a bonus duckling, so instead of 14, I got 15. I was like,
Nice.
oh, good, great.
That's awesome.
And they're all great. Puppy Pearl got one the other day and was gnawing on her wing, but I think she's gonna make it, so we're good.
That's good.
And they're
The
obviously,
circle of life.
that was Thanksgiving, so they're a little bit bigger now. But
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, so
I
definitely
went to
recommend it.
order. I'll have to look again because I was looking quickly because I had been to Marie McMurray already. I had been to I can't even, Cackle Hatchery, and I was like, I would pick out like, I'm not even trying to get a bunch. Like I want like 15 birds. That's it. I would pick out like 4 breeds that I wanted, and it would be like, this one's available in February, and this one's available in August. Good luck. And it was just like I couldn't get a cart together. So I think we might try. There's a local feed store here that has them. It's called Cherokee Feed and Seed up in Ball Ground, and they have them every year. So I might try that, or I might just try Facebook because like I'm in a Cherokee County chicken group, and like those people are serious.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They're
That's how we got
hatching.
our silky rooster, Reggie.
Oh,
Because he's
nice. Love
silkies
that.
are a little show chicken.
Yeah.
He has no purpose besides being adorable. So
Yeah.
okay.
Cute.
So in terms of harvesting, obviously tomatoes,
Yes.
they turn the color that they need to be, but and peppers and things like that. But
Yeah.
like a gourd and what other thing is, like we had broccoli rabe in the garden.
Yes. I
And
bet that was tricky.
we had that 1 week of heat and
Mhm.
poof, all of them are in flower. I didn't even know they were there. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God. So these beautiful plants that were just ready, almost, I missed them. And you
Yeah.
can't go back. So how do you don't just grow tomatoes. You have quite the extensive list of
Yes.
vegetables, it looks like. So how do you know? What do you do?
So for cucumbers and zucchini and squash, it's basically just you have to, for the first couple, you're watching it and it's good, and then you get to a point where you're like, oh no, this has gone horribly wrong and it's way past where it should be. So you do that a couple times, and then you learn, that you want it to be like when you squeeze it, it should be a certain tenderness, and stuff like that. And then another thing too is like there are green tomatoes. Like people have, like I have some tomatoes that are really hard to tell when they're ready. So same thing, you just tell by the squeeze. I know, they're crazy. It's like it's Brad's Atomic Grape is one, and they're just one that's like a multicolored, like it's psychedelic looking, and it's fascinating. But I'm like, are you done? Like I can't tell. Like is this grape tomato? Could be any size. And then peppers. With the peppers, I find that really they can't get too big. Like when they're done, they will just implode. Like if they've gotten too big for themselves, they'll just like a hole will form and it'll just be mush on the ground the next day. As far as, and my experience really is pretty focused in on summer annuals. I haven't done a ton of like broccoli or anything like that. Cauliflower, haven't done that yet either. I did broccoli last year and I struggled too because I was like, okay, it looks good, it's compact. And then I went out the next day and this was just like regular green broccoli. And it was like starting to spread apart a little bit, which meant that it was about to bloom. And so I picked that, and I missed a few. Have you ever seen a cabbage go to seed before?
No, my cabbage never makes it. I try every year and it never makes
Yeah.
it. It gets eaten. And I don't do,
Oh, I bet.
I know, like we don't spray, obviously we don't use any
Yeah.
chemicals or anything. We used to, and it was very effective, but we
Yeah.
don't anymore. And so we do get the cabbage moss and everything, but I know you
Yes.
can do the screens and the shade, the cloths, and I don't do any of that. I just
Yeah.
try every year, and if I get one, that's great. So like with broccoli, last year was a terrible broccoli year. The year before, I had more broccoli than I knew what to do with. Like it was
Really?
coming out everywhere.
Oh,
It
that's
was
awesome.
insane. And then we had purple cauliflower last year. This year, it's not working. But yeah, so
Yeah.
no, I haven't grown cabbage yet.
Oh, so I grew
successfully?
cabbage just last year. It's like I this year I'm having similar. It's just like the chickens got in, it's a disaster. And then I have one that's just not like it's not making a cabbage head. That's my goal, is to get better at like the fall season crops like broccoli and cabbage and stuff like that. Um, but a cabbage, when it's, so I had some really big beautiful cabbages last year, which I started from plants from like Tractor Supply, because I was like, I was growing them from seed. I can't even
The
start
seeds are
to
so
like
small. Yeah.
they're so small and the sprouts are so weak, they get leggy so fast. So anyway, so I started them from plants. I'm trying some from seed this year, but when a cabbage is going to bloom, it like bursts open, like the thing cracks in half in a bloom stalk. Is all of a sudden, like the next day you'll go out and it's just literally like poking out with flowers. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like that's how they bloom. So, you know, and you don't think about that stuff until you let things go all the way through their natural course. But yeah,
Well,
I missed
and
a
you
few
would
cabbages
never
last year.
know, like when I know when I was eating broccoli my entire life that the little tiny green things are the things that burst into little yellow flowers?
Yes, I
No, I
know. That's
didn't. And the
amazing.
word bolt had a
Yeah.
new meaning when we
Yes.
started all these. Same with lettuce and kale and all of those things.
Yes. Yeah, I
So,
do love letting kale go to seed though, because I did that last year and it, like, I got so many seed pods and it
oh,
actually,
really?
yes, so I let the pods, if something goes to seed, I'm just like, all right, you do you. Like, you get a spot, an honorary spot in the garden where the food is not coming from anymore. But I had kale bolt and then go to seed, and then it drops seed pod, or, you know, puts out seed pods.
Mm-hmm.
Every flower that gets pollinated by one of those little bees, a seed pod comes out, similar to radishes. They look kind of similar. They're like little beans almost, and you can eat them too,
Okay.
actually. But and then I had the same kale, the one that bolted. It just slumped over, and then the seeds all opened, and then I had like a 2x2 thing of kale grass. It
What?
grew everywhere. Yes,
Cool.
it was like it was awesome. So if something's going to seed in my garden, I'm like, go for it. Like, you're already ruined in my eyes, you know. So I
Right.
may as well learn more about this
That's
plant
neat.
structure.
I just
So
give it to the chickens. I'm like, here you go.
yeah,
This is
that
useless now.
I yeah, that's a good idea too. I mean, it takes up, so like that kale experiment took up room for the entire, probably, like we were talking
Yeah.
about the 200-day growing season. There was probably kale in that place for the whole. So it's, you know, space is limited, even though I've got it more of it and growing it every year. But so it is a sacrifice
Yeah.
there. But it's
So
just so
basically what I'm
fun to
hearing you
see
is
radishes.
touch things. If it feels,
Yes.
I mean, if it's not a root crop and you can't see it.
Yeah, root crops, I like just look around a little
Right.
bit and dig around. And usually it's just doing something wrong a few times. Like, you know, have you grown carrots? I'm sure you probably
Yes.
have.
Yes.
You pull a couple strings out and they're the saddest little thing you've ever seen. And you're like, not yet. It's going
Not
to take a
ready.
little while,
Right.
you know? But
Yeah.
that's usually what I do.
Well, good. Okay. So I'm looking at my list of questions and we've pretty
Hmm.
much covered all of them just by talking. Um,
Nice.
but I would assume your favorite thing to grow, tomatoes.
It is. Yes.
What
I
is your
love growing
least
tomatoes.
favorite thing to grow? Like your least successful thing? Because if it's your least favorite, you probably don't grow it.
Yeah. Well, I don't eat eggplant, but this year I'm like, I want to grow eggplant. So the things that I have had that I just have not been able to grow so far have been, one is corn. I'm trying again this year, but I tried corn and it wasn't a very good try. Like, I just kind of put some seeds in the ground and the silks came out and that was it. Then they just petered out. Um, and then I've failed at so many things. I wrote it down
I
somewhere
know.
and now I've lost
It's
it.
just kind of part of it. And it's thankfully seeds aren't very expensive. So
Yes.
like when I fail, I've wasted some time and effort and like $5.
Yeah.
Not
And
that big
just
of a
the
deal.
emotional
We
hit
tried
it
to grow
takes. Like,
red corn last year because Arthur
oh,
really wanted to make red tortillas. And
yes.
it same thing. It came up, the stalks were beautiful, and then nothing happened.
Yeah, then it petered out. And then so corn is one of those, but see, I wasn't really invested in the corn, but something that I was really invested in and super pumped on that just did awful is ground cherries. Have you guys tried ground cherries?
They didn't even come up. I probably should have started them in the greenhouse, but I direct seeded
It's
and they didn't. They didn't come
I
up.
feel like I feel like direct sowing is the best way to go because I started mine in the greenhouse and I'm not kidding you. It was like 8 weeks and this plant was this big and I was like something's gone wrong, like this is awful. And I looked it up and everyone was like, no, that's just, and I'm like, you guys are just all putting up with this crap from the ground cherries, but then you grow them 1 year and they keep coming back. So
Right.
but I did have that one go get to a plant finally, but I had to fight that thing all season. And I mean, foster it, like I just had to baby it so much. So ground cherries is another fail. I haven't tried again since that year because it was so exhausting. And I'm hoping if I find a spot that I like, that's like kind of like a perennial, that I can put it there and then let it just reseed and
Right.
do its thing.
So do you like keep a log, like a garden book of what you grow every year, or do you just, I know you said you started a spreadsheet, but do you just remember or?
So far I've just remembered. I haven't had, I mean, but I'm already forgetting stuff because I haven't been gardening here on a larger scale. Um, it's been like 3 or 4 years now. So I most of it's pretty fresh, but no, I don't keep a log of anything like that. I need to. And this year my plan is to keep a log of just the seed starting stuff. But like last year, I really wish I had known like how many tomato plants I had. And I'd love to be able to measure like how many pounds of fruit I
Yeah,
get from it. Because it'd be nice
right.
to know if I'm breaking even or like if I'm like how much does this tomato really cost? I love stuff like that. Like I'm a math nerd on so many things, but in my garden I'm completely disorganized. I have no structure. I don't plan like
Okay.
nearly
You
as much
have
as I
lots
do
of
in other
structure.
areas.
Your garden's beautiful. What are your beds made
Thank
out of?
you. Oh, the beds. I've got the aluminum. Well, I don't know if they're aluminum. They're like the raised beds. You know, I've got a couple of those, just like
Hmm.
the ones you can buy on Amazon and stuff. And then I've got a couple too that we built. The hot beds actually. We did hops last year, and those are cedar, and that's just cedar fencing. And then moving forward, we're kind of done with the raised beds. Like it's just so expensive.
Yeah.
And we've got like okay soil here. So now it is, I'm just doing all in ground. And
Wow. Okay, we'll have to
so
talk again next year to see if that is successful.
yeah. So I did it last year
Oh, you
and I
did?
did it on,
Okay.
yes, it was like probably a 10 by 12. And I did, I don't know what the method is. It's kind of an in-ground method, but I basically mulch the entire thing as early in the season as I can. So I do that like in the fall if I can. And then I put a layer of cardboard under the mulch.
Right.
And
So you did
then
back to
when,
Eden.
yeah, kind of
Yeah.
like that. But
Okay.
then instead of piling on top and planting in that, I scoop the mulch into rows. And then in the negative rows, I put raised bed soil. Because
Yeah.
like my clay, it's going to take years for it to be anything good. But I put
Right.
the raised bed soil and then I plant in that. And then so like 2 years into doing that, now the soil in that spot is really beautiful underneath. And then eventually, if I keep doing the mulch and soil, and kind of treating it like a raised bed, but in the ground,
Right.
um, it'll eventually be really pretty, all of
That's
it. But
amazing. Yeah, that's a great idea. Well,
yeah, that's
good.
my new plan.
Okay, so we've talked about your goals for like this year, but what about like your long-term goals? What are you're on Instagram and
Yes.
do you have a website or?
No, I don't have a website. Right now, as far as long-term goals with my garden are to just really get this established and, moving. With the long-term goals with the plant, this is probably about, I'll just probably keep doing something like this in my own garden every year because I don't want it to get like, I don't want to farm necessarily. Like, I don't know that I ever want to do a market garden.
Mhm.
Um, because growing produce for us is like, that seems like a good goal right now.
Mhm.
As far as starting the plants and stuff, I love that piece of it. Like I love to be in the greenhouse. I love to be repotting stuff. Eventually it would be nice if I'm able to keep selling plants each year to get a little bit of a better structure. Like I'd really love like kind of like a high tunnel style a little bit more. I would need a different, acreage for that. But I love to be able to be growing and starting plants like kind of indoor outdoor on a bigger level like that.
Interesting.
That's just like dreaming.
Yeah, no, long term. There's no dream too big.
Long term. Yeah, so that's kind of what William and I like. I love being in the greenhouse like that. I feel so full when I'm there. And so if I could have something that was a bigger version of that, and then something that was more temperature controlled, because right now it's me running out there with the heater or running plants upstairs. So
right. You're dedicated.
Yes, I'm dedicated. I have an eye on the thermometer. I have one of those thermometers that like so I can see it. It's in my kitchen. So I know at all times what the temperature in the greenhouse is.
Wow.
And so when I wake up and it's 30 degrees in there, I'm like,
oh no.
Yeah, but everything lived. So
that's awesome. Well, good. Well, I think that covers everything. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking with us. Well, me. He's inside making tortillas with her. So
nice.
at Noble Acres, is that your Instagram handle?
Yes.
And you share all your
Noble_acre.
Okay, so Noble_acres, and that's where I can attest. Even though I don't technically, I have the Instagram, I don't get on it. I still get on to check your stuff because it's really beautiful. The greenhouse y'all built from scratch is gorgeous, and your chicken coop is gorgeous, and your garden's always beautiful. So definitely inspirational, and you still you give little tidbits too. I've learned quite a lot from you in the past hour. So
that's good. I'm glad. Yeah, I try. That's basically Instagram is where I go. I don't have a website or anything. That's where I share if I'm selling plants or kind of give updates and stuff like that. So that's like the main.
So do you have any plant sales that you'll definitely be at this year, or just if anybody's interested, follow your Instagram and you'll announce it?
Yeah, you can follow my Instagram and I'll announce it. I've got to figure out what I'm doing as far as sales this year. I usually do the Makers. Well, last year was the first year, but I did 2 of them. It's Makers Mash in downtown Woodstock at Reformation. And then I might also try to do just a setup, like a plant sale with just us, because I have to time it right with the seasons and things, like with the last frost date, when people are planting. So I might try to do a pop-up somewhere.
Okay. Oh, and let's not forget your other Instagram, even though it's not garden related, it's still beauty related. What is that handle? This is kind of my winter side project, and it's Moonlight Artifacts. Is it an underscore, or is it just Moonlight Artifacts?
Girl, I know it, but I don't know it. Hold on, let me look.
It's okay. I can put the link.
Yeah, put the link because I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I have got to look at it.
And
do
you go to like,
you don't think
you resell beautiful things that you go find, right?
Yes, yeah. So I go to estate sales and then I resell them. And same thing, like we've got an antique store around here that does pop-ups all the time. So I've talked to her about potentially going and doing pop-ups. I don't know. I got so stir crazy that I started the kind of antiquing estate sale thing because I was going to those things like twice a weekend, and I don't have space for all of it, but it's beautiful and I hate to just see it go to the dump,
I know.
So yeah, you're really
okay. So what did you say? Underscore, yes or no?
Moonlight_artifacts. Got it.
Okay. And you have a very, how would you describe your style? It's very like retro-y, I think, right?
Yes. Okay. I'm kind of like, and this is very much what we're doing with our redesigning the house a billion times, but it's like I kind of trend towards like vintage florals and mid-century modern type stuff. Like that's like the stuff that I like to gravitate towards.
I like dripping with age, like the crusty chair with the beautiful trim, and that's my problem. Everything that's
Yeah.
breakable and beautiful, and I put it in that.
I was gonna say, yeah, that the good news about the mid-century modern stuff is it's usually weirdly made of wood for no reason. Like I have a wooden duck, they have wooden apples, like just wooden fruit. Kids can't break that. Or it's like plastic. Like it's like when they first really got into plastic.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's some plastic stuff
Fun.
too.
Okay,
But
well,
I do have some
good.
ceramic stuff and like the colored glassware. You got to keep that up high from the kids
Yeah.
and stuff.
Well, good. All right. Well, thank you so
So
much for being with us, and it was really fun to talk to
yes.
you. And we'll talk later.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Bye.